Hello, and welcome to the Inside EVs podcast for September the 22nd, 2022. This is episode number 126. On today's show, we'll be talking about the reveal of the smart #1 Brabus, the debut of the Skoda Vision 7S concept, and the Toyota bZ3 is revealed in China. I'm Dominic Chioni, Inside EVs forum moderator and Inside EVs editor. Joining us today is the impeccable Tom Malogny, Inside EV's editor and host of the YouTube channel State of Charge. We also have the jovial Kyle Connor joining us from the majestic, practically palatial halls of Autospec Studios, where he produces high voltage videos for a growing number of YouTube channels. And sadly, Martin Lee could not be with us today. He is off in a cabin somewhere with no internet, but we are very pleased to be joined by Roman Mica of the Fast Lane family of YouTube channels. Regular Inside EVs readers may recognize the names of some of his channels: TFL Cars, TFL Trucks, and more importantly, TFL EV, which, as you might have guessed, is focused on electric vehicles. Okay, so before we get going, I'd like to ask that you please subscribe to this channel. If you're watching us on YouTube, please hit that thumbs up button and ring that bell icon for notifications so you'll know immediately when a new video is published. If you're watching us on Twitch, you can also ring that bell icon for notifications. All right, so with that out of the way, welcome everybody. How are y'all doing?
Yeah, I got a call. 1 second, Roman. I got a call on a comment. Christian Richard points out Tom needs to call all the trucks cars today because Roman won't like that. I made a comment a while ago when I was on a media drive with Roman, and we kind of hung out a little bit. And I think we even flew together. We're sitting next to each other on a flight to Germany. And he says to me just out of nowhere, he's, one thing that really bothers me. And I'm like, what? He goes, you call trucks cars, and like, that just drives people crazy. Could you work on that and not call trucks cars anymore? And I mentioned it on the show, and Christian remembered it. So I think just to make sure that we don't upset a guest today, I'm going to work really hard to make sure I don't slip up.
So I'm going to be the grumpy old man here, and I'll just do all my corrections that Roman ran right away. First of all, I've got huge shoes to fill with Martin. I love his podcast. So Martin, I hope I do you justice. Thank you for letting me come and sit in your spot. But let me do my grumpy old man rant here. So Dominic, it's Hyundai like Sunday. Okay.
Right. I was going to bring that up.
and being Czech, I have to correct you on Skoda. It's Skoda because the S has a little hot check above it. So my name in Czech is actually Mica. But Skoda means, it's funny, it means pity, because the guy who started it was Mr. Pity. But everybody says Skoda, but it's really Skoda in Czech. All right, I'm done. Sorry, gentlemen.
Who's this guy think he is? He comes on our podcast and starts correcting us. I mean, seriously, did we have the wrong guest here?
Maybe, well, let's ask him. Roman, who are you exactly? So usually we do so we talk about some news, but we'll also talk about what we've been driving and different things. And that's usually when we would probably introduce you. We used to do that at the top of the show. Now we're doing it at the bottom for right now. But anyway, but let's just take this moment and maybe just tell us who you are and what you do, and we'll go on and hit some news.
Yeah, I'm lucky enough to get paid for what I would do for free. So I have a series of YouTube channels called TFL, the Fast Lane Car. So we've got a bunch of different YouTube channels aimed at trucks, cars, like you said, EVs, and got a team of people here in Colorado. Kyle is very familiar with Colorado. We're using the state as a great place to actually test vehicles. We've got the advantage of having mountains and beautiful vistas. And so I started about now 12 years ago. God, that makes me old. With my son, Tommy, who actually shot our first video. He was like 13 at the time. And we were in a Lexus. And I was like, hey, this thing has adaptive cruise control. I wonder if it'll stop when the car in front of me comes to a stop. We had a little crappy camera. And I'm like, Tommy, roll on me. And put up that video, and ever since then, we've been doing car videos and just kind of following the Peterson model. So Peterson was the guy who started Motor Trend and four-wheeler, and basically in LA, he figured out that what you can do is you can create a magazine in his day, right? And then a certain percentage of those people will also be like guns and ammo enthusiasts. So you can take that thing you created and then, put it in a different kind of niche and then grow the company that way. So I've kind of been following his model, but with video. and being paid eventually to do it. And that's just incredible because I love cars and trucks and I love new technology. So I'm very grateful to be able to, have viewership and be here to talk about EV stuff. Can't wait. Thanks, gentlemen.
Sweet. Thanks. Well, thanks for joining us. We appreciate having you on here. All right. So I don't know. Any of you have questions for Roman before we get going?
I just think it's awesome that Roman's joining. I want to see Roman's take on all the new EV stuff because we haven't spoken in a while, and there's been a lot of new electric cars that have come out since we've nerded out. But huge fan of TFL. Watch almost all the videos, every EV video, and pumped to have Roman on.
All right. And actually, so Roman, we'll get your garage and after at the news. Okay. Right. I'm just like ready to talk about it now. But let's talk about the 2021 Smart #1. It's been given a performance treatment by Brabus, turning the nippy four-door into a spicy little meatball. Revealed at the Chengdu Motor Show, Brabus has added a motor to the front axle, allowing the car to make 422 horsepower, slicing its 0 to 62 time from 6.8 seconds to a mere 3.9 seconds. And I will try to pull up actually a photo of that. So as Martin is not here today, I'm the one pushing the buttons. So it might not be quite as smooth as it is sometimes, but we're going to do what we can. And I guess you can see that. Yes. Awesome. So this is the Smart #1. It was just revealed earlier this year, and it hasn't started deliveries yet. Actually, it should be. Let's see. Yeah, it should start deliveries in China anytime in September, then later on in Germany, at least this year. But so there's not a whole lot of visual changes to the interior exterior. It just makes like a lot of horsepower, and it wasn't mentioned, so we assumed that it still has the regular 66 kilowatt hour NMC battery, nickel, manganese, cobalt, which means its peak power rate while charging is 150 kilowatts, and it can charge, they say, from 10 to 80% in under 30 minutes. Range wasn't given, but we estimate from the regular version that this will do around 242 miles WLTP, so that's not too bad. But the price gets a bump too, so it's an additional US dollar equivalent, $12,900 on top of what is $40,400. So this little thing ends up at $53,300 in China. Of course, Smart is no longer sold in the US, but it is sold in Europe. So this should be available there at some point as well. Roman, has Mercedes and its partner in Smart, Geely, kind of lost the plot with this brand? Like sub 4 second 0 to 60 or not, $53,000 is a steep price tag for a subcompact car. The cheapest version of this, by the way, is like $28,800. So even like the bare bones isn't exactly a bargain.
I think Smart has definitely borrowed the design language from Volkswagen. It's got those little raccoon eyes that the ID4 has. Smart has this weird distinction. So we bought a Smart EV a couple of years ago, and it was a second generation. I remember when I went and test drove the third gen EV. I think it's the only EV ever, and Kyle, maybe you'll know more about this than I do, that actually got less range in the next generation, because the one that we bought had like 60 miles of range, and then they introduced the third gen, and it came out with 50 miles of range. And I could never wrap my head around why they did that. Obviously, this is a car, not for our market. It's more for the Chinese market. And so, what I've always been taught about the Chinese market is that they care more about the back seat room than the front seat. And so it seems like the added horsepower is a very European thing. It doesn't feel like it's a Chinese thing, but like I say, looking at it, it looks like a baby ID4.
Nice. Tom, what's your impression about this thing? Is this like, but is it too expensive for the market? Is this like, I don't know. Does this thing
it's much too expensive for the market, in my opinion. It kind of looks cool. Definitely agree with Roman. And I think somebody in the comments said that it's a Mini Cooper with a Volkswagen nose, which definitely kind of looks like a love child of Mini Cooper and an ID4. So it's looks cool. I've been waiting for these small hot hatches. Really been waiting for Mini to put out, like, a 250 horsepower all electric Mini Cooper with 200-mile range. That I think would there'd definitely be a market for that. But you know, and as Roman said, in China, the performance isn't as accentuated as it is in Europe and North America. You really can't like rip it around in many places in China. So in that regard, you know, the performance end was definitely designed for, you know, exporting for Europe probably. So yeah, it's kind of like, I don't know where this fits in. I like it. It's kind of cool. It's super expensive, and I don't know, you know, where this is going to work.
Right. When we talk about, you know, premium cars, and you know, sometimes you don't really want a huge car, like you live in Europe or China or someplace where you have like narrow streets, and you want like a smaller vehicle, but you also want a very nice vehicle. And so this like could be that maybe, but man, I don't know. I don't know.
Well,
Kyle,
Mini was always like a premium small car,
right?
You know, Smart wasn't premium. You know, Minis were expensive for what they offered because BMW made them like a premium little car. So, yeah, I don't know where this fits in. It's kind of cool, but with the price, it's also kind of like, you know, where does this fit in? Who's going to buy this?
It's going to be a blast to drive, though. Kyle, do you have any thoughts on this? You're a Smart EV owner.
Yeah, I love my Smart, and I'm just glad that I own the current one, because this does nothing for me at all. I mean, I guess, you know, on one hand, certainly it's a small, hopefully premium electric vehicle, which I think regardless of the price, they'll probably sell it in China because it's all about, you know, status and appearance and everything. But yeah, just happy I have my little tiny one, because that's what a Smart should be, in my opinion.
Right.
So when we had ours, it was funny. There was a company in Germany that actually tunes electric cars. So we were able to tune ours. And what they did was they sold us this little box that we plugged into the back of our Smart EV. And then it changed the regen and it changed the acceleration curve. So we were trying to figure out, can you actually tune an EV? And the answer is yes. And we had this little hot hatch of a smart car that was zipping around Boulder scaring people. It was expensive though. I remember that box cost like $1,500. But so yeah, you can tune them, and I suspect, you know, as EVs become more accepted, and then as they kind of filter down, like Tom might be talking about his Model 3 to you know, the second and third owners, people will have interest in tuning them, and I think there's this whole world of potentially tuning EVs that has just started, and at some point is going to explode. So I can't wait for those days to actually get here.
Roman, how much did it affect the range?
It took the range down, but it gave you more regen. So the one that we had didn't have a lot of regen, so it almost made one pedal driving available. So I think ours had like 60 miles, and it maybe took it down to like 55. So it gave us quicker acceleration and a lot more regen, and made the car a lot more fun, actually, in some ways, and probably a lot more dangerous.
I just want to bring up this Brabus also did modify the Mercedes EQS, but they didn't do any like performance modifications. It's all just like appearance things I think for the most part. Appearance, well, and actually some aero changes. So there is like some, I guess, performance improvements, but basically not like they're doing with the Smart #1. So I thought that was interesting. All right, so let's move on to the next thing we have. The Skoda Vision 7S concept has been officially revealed in Europe. So Skoda is part of the Volkswagen Group, and so this not only previews a 3-row crossover SUV, but it also showcases a new brand identity. And let's just pop that up on the screen here so you can see what we're talking about. And it's here, and voila. The Skoda. Am I saying that right, Roman?
Yeah, you got it. You nailed it. Thank you for doing that. You can call it Skoda. I'm teasing you guys.
No, actually,
everybody calls it Skoda.
I do. I think I go back and forth depending on who I'm talking to. You know, sometimes if I'm talking to the car people, I'll say Skoda. But if I'm talking to regular people, but I don't really talk to regular people about Skoda very often. So I guess I just say Skoda. But
you do that with Hyundai also. You go back and forth.
Right. Hyundai is because, I don't have that cemented in the right way, cemented in my mind yet. Korean is it's like a foreign language to me.
Boom, boom, boom.
Anyway, so
does anyone else see Fisker Ocean when they see this? This Skoda? I don't know. That was my first impression.
All right.
Well, a little bit of Canoo too, right? That's a little bit of that in there.
So it sits on an evolved version of the Volkswagen MEB platform. It's powered by an 89 kilowatt hour battery for the good they say for 373 miles WLTP. Has a max charge rate of 200 kilowatt hours. Of course, we don't get Skoda here in the US, but it seems like it's moving away from its value brand image here. So Tom, I guess you see some Fisker Ocean in there. I don't know. I see Kia EV9, but I don't know.
So my question would be: is this the Skoda version of the ID Buzz, right? Because Skoda builds their own versions of Volkswagen products. So, Kyle, you were just looking at the ID Buzz. Does this have ID Buzz in it?
I don't think so. I mean, I haven't researched it, but it is going to be on the MEB platform, which we know, I think the largest battery pack that you can squeeze in MEB, at least from what we've been told, is 100 kilowatt hours. But no charging specs have been released. And if they're saying it can charge at 200 kilowatts, well, hey, maybe that's news more for the long wheelbase ID Buzz that's coming to the US than anything else. I really think MEB can be adapted in many different ways. So yeah, like you mentioned, Roman, it really is an ID Buzz underneath if that's what it's going to be built on.
Yeah, I thought the battery size was weird too. 89 kilowatt hours instead of like the big Buzzes. I think it's 111 kilowatt hours actually. Like the big pack.
It hasn't been released officially, as far as I'm aware.
Right. But when I think maybe when they showed the original MEB platform, they were saying it would come in these different sizes, and they had like the big size.
Yeah, they said up to a certain kilowatt. I can't remember exactly, but I know they gave us a number like this will accommodate up to X amount that was over 100 kilowatt hour.
Right. So I thought we'd share this because it's it's like a brand new like image or look for the Skoda brand, and they, like I've said, they've been like a value brand for like the longest time, right? And but the Enyaq, which is the Skoda version of the ID4, it's you really like that too, right, Kyle? You drove that.
Yeah, it's nicer. It's also more expensive, which is weird if you option it a certain way. And like you can get like a really like luxury trim Enyaq, and it's got like an umbrella, like a Rolls Royce in there. It's got some cool stuff going on. Yeah, I think great. Let's just see it come to production.
All right.
So when in the 90s, when the Czech Republic went from capitalist, I'm communist to capitalist, I moved there, and I had a real estate company, and I was getting pretty successful, and I wanted to buy myself a car. So I went and looked at a BMW 5 Series. And when I was looking at the numbers, the car ended up costing, I believe it was 43% more than the MSRP. And the reason for that was because there was a 22% VAT and a 19%, I could get those two backwards, import duty. And so what made Skoda so successful in the Czech Republic was that you didn't have to pay the import duty. And it was kind of protectionism. So if you go to the Czech Republic, you will see Skodas everywhere. And, when government is subsidizing the car, by a percentage of about 20%, it really skews the market toward the domestic car maker. I know we just passed kind of a protection package here with the EV world. But sure. I mean, think about that. Think about if in America you had to pay an extra 20% or so for every foreign car that was sold. Just think how many GMs and Fords would be, actually sold here. It was a crazy time back then.
Right. I think they have similar things like that in like India. If you want to buy a foreign car, it's gonna cost you a lot of money. That's why there's not a whole lot of foreign makes available in India. Like Tesla's can't get in there. Yeah. Anything else we want to say about the Skoda?
No. It looks rugged, it looks kind of more square jawed. It looks like the ID4 is going for the kind of middle of the market. You've got the ID Buzz going for the van market, and you got this guy going for kind of the more rugged 3-row, kind of almost like in some ways like a baby Suburban if it was electric. I like it. I think it's cool.
Yeah, it's a decent size.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So Toyota has a new electric vehicle for China and possibly out of the parts of the world. The bZ3 sedan was just revealed on a Chinese government website. It's the production version of the bZ SDN concept, but that was shown with the other 14 electric concepts recently by Toyota. So it's very similar to the original design. But perhaps the most interesting thing about this car is that it's powered by, let me just bring it up here on the screen. It's powered by BYD LFP batteries, and also BYD motors, which are BYD. So BYD has this extra brand. What was it called? It's oh, I didn't write it down. It's got a special name. It's bizarre. I'll look it up here in a sec and share that so you can see. If you're watching this on YouTube, you can now see the BYD powered Toyota bZ3 electric sedan. Yeah, so we don't have a whole lot of details on it yet. We can just basically see what it looks like, and you see the dimensions. It's basically the size of the Tesla Model 3, and it puts out either 135 kilowatts, or that's 181 horsepower, or 180 kilowatts, or 241 horsepower, and it's rear wheel drive in that form. Toyota has gotten a lot of flack for its electric vehicle timeline. And of course, it's suffering right now through an embarrassing recall of its bZ4X in the US for wheels that may fall off. So I don't want to pick on Toyota too much or gang up on them, and we don't know if this is coming to the US. And if it does, it could have a different powertrain, right? But Kyle, does seeing this bZ3 affect your confidence in Toyota's future at all?
No. Does it do anything for any of this? I mean, it's just, to me, okay, great. Formula is build an electric vehicle, especially in the Chinese market. They just can't get enough EVs at the moment. And so it seems like the right market for this car. Running with all the BYD stuff seems super interesting. Also leads to the fact that maybe, and I think maybe for sure, Toyota just doesn't have enough in-house technology to accomplish all of their electric goals. And so, yeah, I don't think this will come to the US. I think bZ4X is already setting the tone for Toyota's electrification strategy, which is not much. And yeah, well, I don't know. We'll see how it does over there. I don't think it necessarily looks bad for the Chinese market. I don't think it would work in our market, though.
It doesn't look great, right? It's kind of a fussy front end. It's hard to tell too. It's all in black, and I'm not sure if that's a good thing or a bad
That's
thing.
probably like base spec aero wheels, somehow with a sunroof, though. I don't know. Toyotas never look amazing. I think it fits with their design language, though.
Did they manage to make alloy wheels look like it has hubcaps? Is that what I'm seeing there? Is that something that's a new trend?
Wheel covers.
Hubcaps.
I think they're actual hubcaps. Yeah, like wheel covers. Are they on?
Those look better.
Yeah, a little bit.
It's that black picture where it looks like they've got hubcaps on.
So Toyota has just announced. So this tells me that Toyota doesn't have a whole lot of battery capacity, manufacturing capacity. So they're buying from BYD and whoever they can, I guess. But they did this week make some battery announcements. So it announced an expansion of its battery making business in Japan. It has a $3.1 billion expansion of its Himeji plant of Prime Planet Energy and Solutions. That's the joint venture it has with Panasonic. And so, yeah. And they also they're also announcing, let me find it here. Oh, right. The Giga Battery Factory in North Carolina, they're expanding. So they already had plans for a battery factory in North Carolina for batteries for plug-in hybrid vehicles. But now they're investing in additional $2.5 billion in that to produce packs for electric vehicles. So altogether, I believe with the two factories, it's going to produce up to 40 gigawatt hours per year, which is, I guess that would be good for 400,000 vehicles with 100 kilowatt hour pack, or 500,000 vehicles at 75 kilowatt hours per pack. And it's going to be the production of the new facilities should start between 20 and 26, which is, kind of a big span, but 500,000 half a million cars, 2026. I don't know. If it looks to me like their plans aren't super ambitious. What do you think about this, Roman?
I was just driving the new GR Corolla, which is this new hot hatch that everybody's excited about. And there were 3 models of it. And I kind of feel like Toyota's strategy right now is that while everybody's going electric, they're going to make the most of the gasoline runway that's left. And so, most manufacturers have now decided that sedans are, on the way out the side door, and yet Toyota just introduced another sedan, the Crown, and so they seem to be like doubling or tripling down on internal combustion. And the other, the thing that we forget when we talk about EVs is that electrification has actually spurred technology in the internal combustion engine, right? So you've got companies like Volvo building supercharged, turbocharged engines, right? And we're kind of living in this interesting moment in time when there's a renaissance in internal combustion engines, as at the same time as there's kind of a twilight on those vehicles. So I think Toyota's strategy here is to kind of, be dragged into the electrification age, screaming and kicking, but they're also, taking advantage of the fact that a lot of people are leaving that space and hoping that they can fill that space, from when some of the other manufacturers leave it. That's kind of the sense I got from Toyota.
Right. Tom, you have some thoughts on this?
Yeah, well, Toyota dominates hybrids. A lot of companies make hybrids, but nobody sells as many hybrids as Toyota does. And Toyota, for a long time, has owned the hybrid market. When you have a cash cow like that, something that you are the best at, where you're known for, you sell them all over the world, you don't want to let go of that. And I think that's Toyota's biggest problem, is they're so good at what they're doing. They don't want to pivot. They don't want to change. And they know, they're not dumb, Toyota. They know where the market's going. They know electrification is taking over, but they're going to do whatever they can to hold on to that, the golden goose until they have to. And they can't signal that electric vehicles are better, because then that would bring it on even faster. So I fully believe that they understand where the market's going, but they're trying to milk their hybrids and plug-in hybrids through the end of this decade as tough as they can. Now, will they be able to pivot quickly enough when they finally realize, okay, we can't, hybrid cells are down, everyone's switching to electric, will they be able to pivot? They're a huge company. They've got great engineers. They have more battery experience probably than any company out there. They've been making cars with batteries, not fully electric cars, but they've been making cars with batteries for how long? So, a lot of people think they'll be able to make that quick pivot. The bZ4X is their first electric vehicle. I don't think that they put the weight of the brand behind it. I don't think they really tried. I think it's basically we haven't thrown this term around too much anymore. It's a compliance car. We used to talk about that all the time 7-8 years ago, when companies were just making cars because they had to meet compliance. Even though Toyota doesn't necessarily need it with their plug-in hybrids and so forth, I think it was just kind of like, all right, everybody's yelling at us to make an electric car. They're saying we're falling behind. Let's put something out there. And, it was a complete half-hearted attempt. There's nothing outstanding about the bZ4. There's nothing even really good about it. It's just, kind of a competent, decent, it's like it's pretty good. It doesn't charge really well. It doesn't go really far. It doesn't have any really good, unique features. Toyota could have hit one out of the park if they really wanted to. If they put the power of their brand behind it, they could have come out with an awesome electric car. I think we all agree to that Toyota could have done it. So why didn't they? Well, they just don't want to. They want to milk that cow as long as they can. And I think that's what we're seeing in this bZ3 in China is the same thing. Okay, let's partner with BYD. Let's put out an EV because, China's making us make more electric cars. And all right, let them use their batteries and, a bunch of components from them. So we have to put as little as we can into this. And, down the road when, solid state batteries are ready and when the market is ready, we'll start making really good electric cars. So let's see how that works for them. We'll see.
This is going to have some stiff competition in China with even the BYD seal. It's very close to this too, right? It's and with the BYD seal, if you don't remember, it looks a lot like the Tesla Model 3 in my mind. I think it's a little tiny bit bigger. I think you said. Yeah, and of course NIO. I mean, there's a bunch of electric vehicle companies in China, and they all have cars in this space. I think pretty much. So I don't know. Toyota could get bitten on the back end. I think if they don't really
We'll see how this plays out for them. That story is still untold. They think they can flip the switch in 4 or 5 years and just cranking out awesome electric cars. Okay. Hopefully the wheels won't fall off for them.
Right. But
so when I was on this Corolla, GR Corolla program, I did hear some interesting kind of rumors floating around. Before we before we write off Toyota, one of the things that I heard is that the engine in the GR Corolla is pretty interesting. It's a 3-cylinder 1.6 liter that puts out 300 horsepower, which is pretty crazy out of 1.6 liters. But I heard one of the things that they tried at Toyota was they actually ran hydrogen through it as a combustion source, and it actually runs on hydrogen. And I think that sometimes we get really focused on the fact that electrification is the future, but there are other ways of powering cars that are also clean, like hydrogen or like synthetic gas, synthetic fuels that offset the carbon emissions. And I think Toyota's also working on those. I wouldn't write the company off. It's the world's biggest car company. They've got an excellent engineering team, and they may just end up surprising us.
Right. Yeah. No. Definitely, they do have, and they're. I think one of the forefronts of the solid state battery too. Right. They had their own like solid state battery program, I believe. And
yeah, that's a rumor.
Yeah, and that's what they're telling us. But a lot of people are telling us they have great solid state battery technology. Remember, Henrik Fisker was going to come out with his solid state battery in 2020 or 2021. It was going to be ready in the market, and all of a sudden it's gone. Now, I'm not comparing Toyota with Henrik Fisker. Well, I am, but I shouldn't be. But a lot of people have told us that they've got great solid state battery technology. I guess eventually we're going to get there. But is Toyota going to be the company that brings it first to market, or is somebody else out there that we haven't even heard of in some lab somewhere at some university, on the precipice of coming out with something? So, we'll see. And Roman, I wasn't insinuating that I think Toyota's doomed because they're not doing this. They may very well be able to flip that switch. I mean, they may have a secret EV program that's just ready to rock. That is like, just going to be awesome. But we just don't know that yet. And this was kind of, the bZ4X was our first opportunity to say, okay, Toyota, let's see what you could do with an EV. Because, they have made other electric vehicles before, the 2 generations of RAV4s. But those were just incredibly half-hearted attempts. Those were complete compliance cars, where they even outsourced, the components and the powertrain from Tesla for the 2nd gen. So, they may be able to flip that switch, but I was hoping that the bZ4X would give us a little indication that, look, Toyota's on this. And when they are serious and they flip that switch, watch out. And it was just like, womp, womp, womp.
You know what I don't get, guys? There's like 2 main lessons that Tesla has taught the rest of the industry, right? Number one, electrification works, and it can be profitable. And they're copying a lot of stuff that Tesla is doing, like the door handles, right? You're seeing the glass roof. But the other lesson, I think the more important lesson, is that Tesla did the heavy lifting and they built out their own infrastructure. And I am always amazed that not one, dare I say, legacy car company has the wherewithal to actually see that if they want to survive, if they want to thrive in this new world, they have to build out their own infrastructure. Because as the current state of electrification infrastructure in America is dismal at best and almost laughable at worst. So I just don't understand why like Ford or Toyota or somebody doesn't go out and actually copy that Tesla model, because that's the one that's going to eventually, I think, pick the winner in this race.
Yeah, I've always asked, whenever we go on these press drives, Roman, I always ask the product managers, whatever, that same question, especially when I can get a hold of somebody who's involved in like charging and infrastructure for the company. And I think it might have even been on matter of fact, it was on the press drive we did together. And I don't know, you weren't sitting at the dinner table with me. When you go to dinner, sometimes you sit at different tables. I actually got into an argument with the person at the infrastructure person at that table. And it got a little heated for a little while about Tesla's advantage with the Supercharger network. And I kind of said out loud, I don't understand why the legacy brands haven't even just gotten together. Even if, like, let's say Ford doesn't want to fund it themselves. I know they're competitors, but why didn't Ford and Chrysler and GM or over in Europe, the brands over there, just get together and say, guys, each one of us, let's put $1 billion in a pot and let's just crush Tesla. Let's go out and put high-speed charging stations everywhere for our vehicles, because they're eating our lunch now, and they're small and they're getting bigger and bigger, and they're going to be the 800-pound gorilla in the room if we allow them to have such a charging advantage. Now, I know that sounds like a lot of money, just throw $1 billion in a pot, but for these companies, that's completely doable. Like BMW invested almost $3 billion in the i4 and i8 program, so, they could do this, but we got into an argument over, it's not our job to do infrastructure. We don't do gas stations. The market's going to sort this out. And he was getting upset at me for coming back and saying, but in the meantime, you're getting your ass kicked. And you don't even have to manage the station. Build it out, and then in 4 or 5 years, sell it to someone. Shell will buy it from you. Exxon will buy it from you. And you don't have to manage it, but at least get this shit out there. And it actually got, and I get that response from almost every company. It's not our responsibility. It's not our job. We don't do this. And, you see where we're at right now, the difference between the organic charging experience at Tesla charging stations that have vertical integration, that are designed, built, engineered. The back end is all connected to the cars. There's never, connection problems. And then compare it to the state of infrastructure we have right now with the EVGOs, the Electrify Americas, the charge points, the all these other networks out there where it's a crapshoot when you roll up if it's going to work when you plug in. So yeah, it's tough, but that's where we're at right now. It still surprises me that the legacy brands didn't see this ahead of time.
Kyle, got some thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I think certainly it's been proven that when an automaker gets involved with charging, it works. Tesla's really the prime example of this. But also, and I'll have a video come out on this at some point in the next couple of weeks, but I took a Porsche Taycan on a 1,500 kilometer road trip in a day in Germany just a couple of days ago, and left at noon and was back by pretty much midnight, and was going max speed when possible, and really, charging very often throughout the day. And not one time, first of all, there's 300 plus kilowatt chargers off every single exit without fail. This is on a main travel route, of course. And every single time I plugged in, I had a plug-in charge connection that worked and gave me max speed without fail. And I think I had something like 15 or 18 charging sessions throughout my trip, and it just worked. And none of it was automaker sponsored. And so I think Germany's leading the way to show, okay, it may not be needed to have an automaker sponsored charging network. In the US, it's really the only way to ensure reliable charge at the moment is to drive a Tesla. That's why I still have mine. For road trips, if I just have to get somewhere, I take a Tesla or a combustion car, and I know I can get there without issue. If I want to make a fun YouTube video, I take a CCS car.
There you have it. Right. So Europe is doing something right. I don't know how we're falling down, but
it's certain parts of Europe. Like if you go down into Portugal or Spain or Italy, it's not nearly as good. I think Germany has this figured out as the leader, probably globally. Maybe China's right there as well, of just ease of travel in electric vehicle. Right. But everywhere else, not quite there. Norway, of course, works pretty well.
Right. I wonder if the German government had a lot to do with that, like incentivizing, or
it's primarily ENBW, which is like their giant electric cooperative throughout the whole country.
Right. How do you say it?
Just installed chargers everywhere. And we're going to do some projects with them because I want to figure out how they're funding it, how this all works, because it requires a lot of money. And that's what this problem comes down to. A, we need better hardware, which is right on the brink of coming to our market. And B, we need funding for all of this. And automakers are probably the best source of it. But like Roman and Tom mentioned, they don't want to foot the bill at the moment.
Well, they are putting some money in some, like GM is partnered with EVGO, and there's some money going back and forth there, I believe. And, there's partnerships with Electrify America, with Ford and other automakers. So there is some of that. Marty Walsh is in here saying Chem Power. That's
yes, good.
They're they're coming here, I believe. Or how is that?
Yeah, same with Alpitronic, and Kempower just is building up their US team at the moment, and really solid stuff. There are some limitations with Kempower though, 150 kilowatt max, not super high power.
Right.
And but nice to see this DC microgrid sort of from the start at installations. Honestly, Tesla is just killing everyone at the moment. Version 3 superchargers get dropped off on pallets now, slammed in the ground, and in like 4 or 5 days, done, onto the next. It's just incredible.
That's true. That's true.
And they're also having less issues with supply chain problems now, because everything's developed in-house and they control their inventory. They're not going to a third-party support like Electrify America. If a charging station breaks, they have to call like Signet or ABB and be like, oh yeah, we need parts for this. And ABB maybe didn't stock enough. Like Tesla is controlling everything, so they'll see ahead of time and make sure they have parts in stock as whatever's available. It's just the whole ecosystem, the whole vertical integration of them controlling the parts. Now, we mentioned that GM has just recently done a partnership with EVgo, which is great. They've given EVgo some money. Basically, they've written a check and said, EVgo, do this along this corridor. But that's not what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is the companies getting together and actually doing like what Tesla did: design, build, make your own equipment that you control the whole, integration of it. And that's different than just cutting a big check and telling Electrify America or EVgo, hey, I want you to put charging stations out here, and then you manage them and all this stuff, as far as no control over if they're going to be fixed, if they're going to be repaired. And I think it's funny that GM is doing this now, because I remember when the Bolt first came out, I interviewed a lot of high executives at GM, and they were adamant, we don't do charging infrastructure. We will never do charging infrastructure. That is not our business. We're not doing it. And they were like one of the most vocal against it. And now, 7 years later, they're realizing, oh crap, we need to do infrastructure. That's what I don't understand, how they didn't see this early on and see how Tesla customers were raving over the charging experience and say, you know what, we should really be doing this. And I'm sure there were some people within the company fighting for it, but the bean counters were probably like, no, we're not doing that. We're not, the market will sort that out. Well,
and Tom, you'll appreciate this, and so will you, Kyle, and so will you, Dom, I guess. There's another potential issue that's coming down the road, which is going to make fast charging, DC fast charging, even more relevant to our conversation. And that is, we've owned 3 models of Tesla, and I think the biggest battery was in the Model X. But what ends up happening is, as you increase battery size, level 2 charging at home stops to be efficient. So, right now we have 3 electric cars at the office. So we have a Mini SE. I can take that home and it'll charge in about 4 hours, right? Then we have an Ioniq 5, and you can charge that overnight. Last night, I took our Lightning, and we have a 40 amp charger at my house, plugged it in at about, maybe 6 o'clock at night. And the truck said it wasn't going to be done charging, and it was down to like 15%. The truck wasn't going to be done charging until, I want to say 10 o'clock the next morning. And with the Hummer EV, now you're looking at a 250 kilowatt hour battery, right? This is just getting to the point where it's not enough for a home charger if you want to completely charge it up, or if you actually want to, and you don't need to completely charge it up. I get that, but there's something, I think, in me and in a lot of people where you want to have a full charge in the morning. And so now, as the batteries get bigger, home charging is not going to be as effective, and probably is going to get more expensive. And so it would be nice to actually have a reliable infrastructure where, with these giant batteries, you can actually charge them up in a relatively quick amount of time. And I think that's going to affect more and more people as more Lightnings roll out, as the bigger batteries are coming in the future.
That's a good point.
Yeah, but also you have to remember, if you do plug in every night at home, it's a little different, you, Roman, because you have multiple vehicles and you're using them for work. If you do charge every day, you only have to replenish what you use that day. Right. You might have had the vehicle out for 4 or 5 days before you plugged it in. I think that level 2 charging at home will be adequate if you put in the right charger. Like you put in a 40 amp charger, probably well before you had vehicles with such big batteries. I think 48 amp is pretty good. But now we're seeing a lot of these 80 amp charging stations come out, and particularly for homes with 2 electric vehicles. Now we're seeing the dual connector charging stations that you can plug in 2 vehicles at once. But I mean, we're going down that road. But I get what you're saying with these larger batteries. Now, my garage is ripped apart right now because I'm redoing it. It's the first time in 13 years I don't have a level 2 charging capability at home, and I have my Lightning. So I'm charging on level 1, and I just wanted to see how long it would take to replenish 100 miles of driving range. Does anybody want to guess on level 1 how long it took me to replenish 100 miles?
4 days.
Not
18,
that long, but
18 hours.
In hours. How many hours?
36 hours.
49.
Which vehicle? Sorry.
My Lightning.
Oh,
took 49 hours to replenish 100 miles of driving. You don't want to charge the Lightning on level 1. You could, but in 2 days it to 100 miles. So if you could do the math, it would be like 3.5 days to fully charge it from dead. But the thing is, I wouldn't be fully charging it from dead. I'd go out and drive 30 or 40 miles today, come home, plug it in, and overnight I might get 18 miles back. I'd still be running a negative. But in any event, I get your point, Roman. But I do think that we'll sort that out for home charging, and I think people will get used to coming home and just plugging it in. And as long as you're not driving 200 or 300 miles every day and need to fully recharge, you should be okay if you just keep topping it off.
All right, so I would just want to hit a few more news items before we get into what we've been driving. So this morning, Mercedes-Benz revealed U.S. pricing for the EQS SUV. So if you like the EQS SUV, and you just pop up a picture of that up on your screens, it looks like this is pretty nice, actually. I think I'll definitely like this better than the EQS sedan. Yeah. For the US, if you want, the MSRP starts at $104,400, and that will give you 305 miles of EPA range. So that's pretty decent. That's a lot of money, of course, but it is a Mercedes-Benz SUV, and they've just started making them in Tuscaloosa, Alabama. So they've been making regular SUVs there in Tuscaloosa at the factory since 1997, and now they're joined by an electric version, and then later on this year, the EQE will join them there as well. And yeah, the EQE should be great because it'll be a lot more affordable, I expect, at least 20% or more. I don't know, Tom, how much cheaper do you think the EQE would be? 104 is a lot of money. Yeah, I think you're on.
Sorry. Yeah, it's got to be at least 20-25% less. And I mean I think what you should look at is pricing models for Mercedes with their gas cars, because they're going to probably try to stick to closely the same relationship cost wise. So
that makes sense.
I don't know what the exact difference is in the gas versions, but I think they're going to want to be consistent with their pricing scheme. But I agree with you, looks wise, that looks really good.
Yeah, it's so much better.
And I really do not love the nose of the EQS, but on this, it really works.
Let's scroll through a couple pictures of it. This is the Tuscaloosa plant. I
was just in the plant, got to watch them build these things, which was pretty cool. And they build them right alongside the GLE. There, it's on the same production line. It's actually the EQS SUV is about the same size as the GLE combustion one. And what's cool is they can ramp them from 100% combustion to 100% electric, and anywhere in between. So going down the line based off of orders that are coming in or whatever product planning they've done, they can infinitely change which ones they're building. It's pretty neat, really cool factory. Every Mercedes GLE and GLS are built in Alabama. So even when you're around Europe and you see all of them, they're built here in America and shipped out, which is cool.
That's right. And I believe, the SUV is built here. The EQS SUVs will be also shipped out. Have you driven the EQS SUV, Roman?
I have not. I've driven the EQS, not the SUV. Hey, have you guys... Is it just me, or have you guys noticed that when you lose a grill on a car, it tends to look a little fish-like? I don't know. I'm looking at all these cars, and for some reason, when you lose that kind of, airflow grill, it starts to look kind of fishy to me. Maybe it's just me. I'm looking at that thing, and I'm like, I don't know. It feels like it would be much happier underwater.
Yeah, and what's totally agree. They look a little weird, but got to spend some time with it, and it's super smooth. And speaking of underwater, they actually have like an unbelievable water fording depth. I forget what it is offhand. And like they built this thing like with a whole bunch of off-roading features, which no one will ever use, which is kind of interesting.
Yeah, I was watching Rivian. Did you see that video that went viral where the guy launched his boat and the thing was pretty much half underwater and it just pulled right out? It's pretty crazy.
Yeah, so is the EQS SUV? Is that when I think about it, I'm thinking of competitors. I'm thinking BMW iX. Is that about the same size or?
iX feels a bit bigger to me. It's right in there with e-tron, iX, and EQS SUV. These are going to be the hot ones. We actually have the iX and the e-tron this week, and we're going to bring a Model X in as well and do some of these comparisons. I wish EQS SUV was on sale for this because then we'd have the full line.
Yeah, I look forward to seeing those videos actually, iX and EQS together, because I know that the sedan was so great, to drive and everything, and if they can match that
we won't have the EQS because they're not in the fleets yet.
Right.
The SUV, the sedan is.
Right. I'm looking forward to that though when they do have it, so we can see how they match up. Just some other news. Genesis GV60 availability has been extended to 4 more states. Now you can buy them in Arizona, Nevada, Utah, and Washington. Previously, you could only get them in California, Connecticut, New Jersey, and New York. And really, Connecticut, like you can choose like 4 states to sell your car.
So my mom owns one in Connecticut. That's how she got hers.
Right. But I mean, Connecticut is not the state that comes to mind when you think of, like limited initial sales. You don't think of it as, Connecticut's a big EV state.
It's New York Metro. So you just go New York City, you have Jersey and Connecticut, that bubble.
Right. Anyway, yeah. So that's available for sale in more places. So that's great. And let's move down. The Ultium Cells battery factory in Warren, Ohio is now up and running and producing cells for the Hummer EV and GM vehicles. It's a joint venture between General Motors and LG Energy Solutions. It's the first of 4 factories planned, and it's expected to produce about 40 gigawatt hours with an option for further expansion. So just for a second, this is one factory of GM, 40 gigawatt hours. They have 3 more coming. Toyota's expanded thing in 2026 is going to be like 40 for their 2 factories together. So just an idea of the scale of ambition or the difference in ambition between GM and Toyota right now. Although, of course, Toyota can buy batteries from like another supplier. They don't have to make all the batteries that they use, but still, I don't know. It gives me pause when I think, 160 gigawatt hours of batteries from GM and compared to like 40. It's like a big difference. Anyway, let's see. Oh yes, the Polestar 6 is only going into production in 2026, and it's going to cost $200,000 a piece. But if you wanted one of the 500 copies that will be made, it will take some wheeling and dealing, as the entire production run is sold out. And I'm just going to pop this on the screen just for a second because I love this thing so much. And somebody put me in charge of the buttons. So here we go. Sold out. You can't get one. Sorry, Kyle. Did you want one?
Well, actually, I was going to reserve one, and then I saw that you need to give them $25,000 of an interest-free loan for however many years it's going to take for them to make it.
Yeah, no, it's a lot. It's like 4 years from now.
So
3 years.
Shall we take bets on which one gets done first, this or the Tesla Roadster? Which one's going to hit the market?
I like this more than Tesla Roadster as far as like the styling and everything.
Totally. It looks amazing.
What's unusual about this is it's got a hardtop convertible, and hardtop convertibles were popular there for a while, and then the manufacturers figured out that they just added complexity and cost, and they went to soft top convertibles. But now, for some reason, they've gone back to a hardtop convertible. I think the car is beautiful, but it's weird because, hardtop convertibles add weight. This thing already has a lot of weight with the batteries. So I just wonder, I'd love to ask them why they went with the hardtop and not the soft top. And I'm happy they're building a convertible, because it seems like every auto manufacturer is building a mid-size crossover, and yet there are so many segments that now are still, green fields for electric cars, and yet everybody's like, hey, let's build another mid-size crossover.
Right. And this is like at $200,000. This, I feel like the convertible, there's so lots of green space in the convertible, niche. It just looks so great, though. I can't stop. Okay, I'll just close that.
Let's just spend the rest of the podcast looking at photos of it.
I just drool over that. Oh my God.
You know what the cool thing about Geely owning Volvo is? It allowed Volvo to be Volvo, right? Because they gave them the room to actually follow the Volvo-esqueness of their brand. Under Ford ownership, obviously Volvos were more Ford. But it's nice now to see the brand kind of running with the football and developing the cars that they're inherently meant to develop, I guess, if you were to look at it that way.
Yeah, Volvo's got great product, great design. They've really blossomed as an automaker over the last decade, I guess. Tom, you had something you want?
Yeah, I have to say, all right, I hate to be that guy, but let's push through the news so we could get to what we're driving. We're at 55 minutes.
Let's talk about what we're driving. Oh my God. I meant to do that a little faster than that.
You didn't talk about the Tesla yoke story, where the whole thing, there was a story out this week where owners of the Tesla Plaid with the yoke are finding that after just 19,000 miles, the thing starts to fall apart and crumble. Are you experiencing that at all, Kyle, in your Plaid?
Oh, my Plaid is crashed, and somewhere, I don't even know where. I actually, just before the podcast, loaded up the Tesla app. It's in Loveland, sitting at a body shop that I've never heard of. And so don't know what's going on with it. But it's still too new.
The body's fine on it, though.
The quarter panel needs to be replaced, and then blended paint. And I just don't want the car anymore. I'm just like, okay, as soon as it's back, Carvana, before the accident report hits it, I'm joking, we'll be fully transparent. And then we'll do something else.
No, I'm with you, dude. It's like chewing somebody else's chewing gum. Once a thing's been crashed, it's no longer yours. It's somebody else's.
Yep. And so even with the crash stuff, I was just like, Jordan, just tell me when it's done. You handle the fixing thing, and we're going to just make some videos, thrash it around the racetrack, and sell it.
Yeah. It sounds like a plan. Well, I'm pretty sure it's probably pretty decent. It's just like the suspension broke and protected the rest of it.
I just got the accident report. Well, I make a whole video about this, but we brought it to Tesla, and it was like $11,000 worth of just suspension, not factoring in wheels or anything else. So, and they also don't know if the motors are okay yet. So there's a lot to dig into. Okay.
I guess we'll learn more about that as it happens. Say, Roman, you have an F-150 Lightning, and you also have an Ioniq Hyundai. Did I say it right?
Hyundai, like Sunday. That's what it's not me, dude. That's what the CEO of Hyundai said when they first started the brand. They were like, how do you pronounce it? In the UK, it's like Hyundai. And he's like, it's Hyundai like Sunday. So I'm just going with what he said, like way back when the brand came to America.
Right. I need to straighten it out in my head first before I say it out loud, because I speak some Japanese, and so I always use like the Japanese way of pronouncing it, and it just throws me off. So yeah, your F-150 Lightning. So you're making a ton of videos with your F-150 Lightning. Recently you had a few F-150 tug of wars.
Yeah, we did. We did a tug of war. We bought a ranch to do like off-road testing, and we did a tug of war, and we tugged it against a Bronco, and then we pulled a Cummins 2500 Ram, and the Lightning beat both of them, and it had nothing to do with like traction, because we did it on dirt, because we don't have the money to start replacing half joints and U-joints and half shafts, and powertrains. But it really came down to instant torque, right? The Cummins, even though it has more torque, I think it's like 830 pound-foot of torque in the low output one. The Ford stuff just comes on immediately because it's electrified. It's funny, we did a video a couple weeks ago where we towed with the Lightning and compared it to an internal combustion, a V8, right? And that got pushed out there on Breitbart. And unfortunately, this is, I think, sad, because electric vehicles, electric trucks especially, have become like masks. It's become a political thing. What side of the fence are you on? And it's no longer about the technology. It's about whether you believe in global warming, and whether you believe in electrification. And what ended up happening is that the technology is not now the center of what we should be talking about. It's whether you believe in all this other stuff. And at TFL we don't do politics. We do cars and trucks, we like to say. So we just like to have fun with these things. But there are a number of use case scenarios where the electric Lightning is superior. I personally think it's the best truck that Ford builds right now, or ever has built. It's that good. But long distance towing is not one of them. In that video, we ran out of juice about 87 miles, south of Denver, and that's just the fact. You can't tow it's not even weight. It's about aerodynamics, right? You can't make something very aero, then it's going to use a lot of power. And then this video you're showing is we were the first, I think, to drive. I know we were the first to drive the F-150 Lightning as far north in America, in the U.S. as you can. So we drove it up to Prudhoe Bay, Alaska, Deadhorse, Alaska, and that was interesting because once you get past Fairbanks, there's no DC fast charging. And in fact, in Alaska, last time we were there, which was like a month ago, and you were there, Kyle, too, there were 7 DC fast chargers. And I say that loosely because they're 50 kilowatt. And so we would basically have to drive and then charge for 15 hours on a level 2, then drive again, charge for 15 hours. But we made it. And then like the week after, there were 10 electric cars that made it up there as well. They set up kind of a temporary infrastructure. So, we've got, I think, 12,000 miles on our Lightning right now. And unlike any other vehicle, it's as tight as it was when it was delivered from the factory. I think Ford's just nailed it out of the ballpark with this truck.
Yeah, this is nice. Is this you have the most miles on of anybody with the Lightning, or is this?
I don't know. Somebody put a comment on one of our videos that they've got 30,000 miles on it, that they've had it for a month, that they drive 100 miles every day to and from work. And I'm like, it's like every day, 7 days a week. Really? I think we must have one of the more high mileage ones out there. Yeah, but I love the truck. It's been my daily driver. It's not perfect. One of the things that is really missing is a state of battery percentage charge. You have to kind of go into a separate menu or configure the display in such a way that that's the only bit of information you're getting. But outside of that, with independent suspension, with acceleration, with the payload, I think ours is 1,675 pounds of payload, 10,000 pounds of towing. It's just phenomenal. It's just when you put a big, heavy, a non-aero, and by the way, that camper we put on it took out like 70 miles of range with the off-road tires. They took out like 30 miles of range. So we were down to about 240 miles of range on a full charge with that camper.
Right. Yeah, those things impact. It's not just the weight. It's just like the aerodynamic profile for the most part, right?
Yeah, it's all about aero. It's not about weight. You can haul 10,000 pounds with that, and you may lose up to let's say 50% of its range. The given range is 310 miles. Tom knows that very well. So you'll get maybe 150 miles if you're towing 10,000 pounds. But the second you put something that's non-aerodynamic behind it, you're going to be down to like 100 miles of range.
It's Papa. I wasn't sure if I should play too much of your video on the podcast. Sometimes we'll get a strike from YouTube. I'm not sure how automated that is. So if you get
don't worry about it. Yeah.
If YouTube gets in touch.
So here's the funny thing, right? So you get past Fairbanks and you go, basically you follow the pipeline up to Prudhoe Bay. And that road was built to service the pipeline. And we had all these grand plans of like camping out. So we bought like a George Foreman grill, right? Because we were going to camp out. And the second you get above the Arctic Circle, you get out of that truck and you are inundated with like zillions of mosquitoes. And so all these plans went out the window. And we couldn't do any camping. We couldn't do any cooking. And then you get up there and everything is so hard and it becomes so expensive. There's a little town called Coldfoot, which is basically halfway up to Prudhoe Bay. It's a little it's a little truck stop. And like dinner is like $50, take it or leave it. Gas is like $8 a gallon, take it or leave it. The hotel rooms up there, which are like double wide trailers that smell like chemicals covering up mold, those are $300 a night, take it or leave it. It gets very expensive very quickly. It was fun though, and people gave us a lot of grief because we didn't take the Alaskan highway. So we actually put the trucks, and Ford gave us a hybrid to serve as a chase truck, a camera truck, and then an emergency, to be able to charge this truck. And so people said we didn't drive up there. We just don't have the bandwidth to spend basically a month driving up and another, 2 weeks driving down. It's right. We're putting videos together every day. Yeah. And so it wasn't that we didn't want to do it. We just couldn't do it.
This is so. What are we looking at right now? We're on YouTube. We're looking at this flat expanse. Is that looks like the prairies or something? Is that
So
Alaska?
that's midnight a month ago, and that is Prudhoe Bay. It's just a giant oil field. It's basically like 30 miles by 40 miles. And there's no cinemas up there. There's no restaurants. It's not a place you want to go unless you really want to go as far north as possible. What's really interesting and what I think people will be surprised about is it's a giant oil field, and yet ecologically it's beautiful, right? There are caribou running around, geese, and you think it'd be this like giant industrial complex, but yet you can see, they've done a really good job of containing the oil extraction while keeping nature, at its best. And that's where 95% of Alaska's budget comes from. It's from the oil field up there in Prudhoe Bay. And it's also where every Alaskan gets, I think it's like $1,500 for the oil that's extracted up there. It's interesting.
Yeah. Well, I mean, considering the price is $1,500, would it be helpful?
Yeah, I don't know what I learned. I got a tour of the facility. Is that the oil is pressurized there, and it comes up out of the ground, kind of like a milkshake color, right? And only 5% is actually oil, so the rest is natural gas. It's this huge natural gas field, and then they pump the natural gas back into the ground. And then the other thing we learned was that we charge the truck at Coldfoot using a diesel generator. Up in Prudhoe Bay, they use natural gas to power their facility, so we use natural gas. And then in an emergency, we had to use the F-150 hybrid, so we use gasoline. So in Alaska, only 5% of power comes from renewables. It's 95% is still non-renewable. So we have a long way to go before the promise that Mr. Musk set out is a reality, and that is people actually use solar power at home to charge their cars. Even in the lower 48, still 75% of our power comes from non-renewables.
Right. Yeah, renewables are still up and coming. Whatever. They're cheaper though. It's like the new electricity generation. I think renewables are the lion's share of that now. So the change is coming. It's just never as fast as we want it. That's a great shot of you with the truck out there. So no problems with it at all on the trip?
We've got 12,000 miles on our Lightning, and we've had zero issues with it. Nothing, no squeaks, no rattles, nothing's fallen off of it, which is unusual. And we've had no service. I mean, the truck has been absolutely bulletproof. Like I say, the worst thing we did was we put those off-road tires on, which took the range down by about 10%. And we just took the camper off, and I was happy to get that off too, because now we're back to like around 300 miles of range. But yeah, the truck is phenomenal. I have another friend of mine, another YouTuber, who has both the Rivian and the Lightning, and he's about to sell the Rivian. So I don't know if that says a lot. They're very different, right? The Rivian is, Kyle knows this as well, the Rivian is more of a lifestyle truck, right? It's more like for the people who want to go out overlanding or camping, and the Ford is more of a trucky truck, right? So if you're actually going to do some work, that's, I think, a truck that's much more adapted to that kind of lifestyle.
Well, on that note, Tom, I believe you have some news for us about your Rivian. So you're an F-150 owner as well, F-150 Lightning owner as well, but you had an order for another truck or something. Tell us what's going on.
Yeah, so I ordered both the F-150 Lightning and a Rivian R1T, and I took possession of the Lightning 2 months ago, early July. Have had it for 2 months now. Fantastic. I echo Roman's sentiment there. I don't need to repeat that. I'm more impressed than I even thought I was going to be with the vehicle. I had driven it very limited before I got it on the press drives, but I'm really absolutely thrilled with it. It's doing everything and more than I thought it would be. It's such a comfortable driving experience. It's really, I like it more than I thought I was going to. But I also ordered the Rivian R1T, and I've said this on the podcast that my plan was to get both of the trucks, keep them over the winter, and then maybe next year sell one of them. And I really believed it was going to be the Lightning because I thought it was going to be too big. I never had a full-size truck like that. I really don't need a full-size truck. And I thought perhaps my wife might not like the driving experience because we take turns driving both the vehicles, but she loves it so far. She's absolutely, she says every time she drives it, it gets smaller, so it's adjusting to a big full-size car, truck. Said that for you, Roman. Hasn't been a problem for her. But now a couple of days ago, 2 days ago, I got the email from Rivian that my R1T is ready. So I have to begin the process now. That's why I'm drinking out of my my Rivian coffee cup today. I'm beginning the process of going through purchasing the R1T. So really soon, I'm going to have both trucks in the driveway. So we should be able to make some fun videos on that, video comparisons. Probably won't be going in as heavy with towing as Roman and Kyle did with his vehicles, but a lot of charging, range, all that stuff, all different comparison videos. So, and I also began the process of installing the intelligent backup power system at my house for the Lightning. That's the system that allows the Lightning to power your house. I'm going to be doing videos on that, the full installation videos. So it's going to take a little while because there's some, that my utility, my local, I'm also doing a service upgrade at my house. So my utility's involved and things haven't been as smooth as I wanted them to be in the beginning, but we're going to sort all of that out and make some videos on this stuff so you guys can see how to install the system, how it works, and all that stuff. But we'll have both trucks in the driveway here pretty soon, within a couple of weeks.
And you also, where does it go? Right, you had some. So you're an F-150 Lightning owner, and you made a video this week about the things that you don't like and the things that you do, like 10 things you do and 10 things you don't. Yes.
Yeah. I put out my top 10 likes and dislikes on the Lightning. That video's up on my YouTube channel, State of Charge, but it's also embedded into a written article up on Inside EVs. So you could watch, view it from there, and that way you can watch the video and read what I wrote about it. But yeah, I had to struggle to find 10 things I didn't like, but actually once I started thinking about it, a lot of the things I posted are minor things, and many of them don't really have to do with the fact that it's electric. It's just F-150 things that I don't like. Like for instance, the armrest, when you pop it open, it has a super weak spring. It just kind of lifts up like an inch, and you've got to get your hand and lift it. Now, when you're driving and you need to dig something out of the armrest, it's really awkward because you got to pop it, and then you're holding the steering wheel and you get your other arm and you kind of lift it up and reach in. It's just little things like that. But a lot of the things. And then I got a lot of comments on the post that, hey, yeah, I have the gas version of the F-150 and it's the same thing. God, why didn't they just spend 50 cents and put a stronger spring in? And then other people commented and said, listen, pry the spring up and put a nickel underneath it, and that gives it enough compression to pop it open when you press it. So that's something that's not really specific to the Lightning, but yeah, it's a good, seems to be performing pretty well. And I listed my top, actually 11 things, because I gave a bonus like and a bonus dislike. Okay.
So some of these things track for you too, Roman?
Yeah, it's hilarious because you're talking about like the arm spring. I'm thinking to myself, there are guys who have like Silverados with 8 speeds that completely gave up the ghost. There are guys with that solidity activation that completely don't work, and we're talking about springs in the armrest. So I think that just speaks loudly to how well the truck actually does when you're down to that granular amount of like dislikes.
And one of my dislikes was what Roman mentioned earlier, that he doesn't like, that it doesn't have a numeric state of charge listed on the driver's display all of the time. You can find it if you use the calm screen, which is an option you could have for the driver's screen, but I don't really like that layout. And then the only other time it shows it is when you're using hands-free Blue Cruise, because then it shows the state of charge underneath the Blue Cruise icon. But other than that, you don't get state of charge. You've got to look into the center console, into the settings, charge settings. Then it shows you there. I mean, personally, every electric vehicle should have somewhere on the driver's display a little numeric state of charge thing, and even let it be configurable. If you don't want it, you can click a button in the settings and have it go away, but you should definitely be able to see that. And now we're showing, I'm not a fan also, so I'll mention one more dislike, kind of that light bar, which I like. It's really like a milky white pasty plastic color, and I don't love that. I think it works better on the lighter colored Lightnings, but I have a black one.
Right.
It just stands out too much. So I'm actually in the process of tinting it now. I bought a tint that's made for lights, so it still allows the light to shine through, but it's going to look black. And we'll see how it looks. If I don't like it, I'll peel it off.
The biggest problem we found that actually affected performance was, you see those wheels? When you go up the Dalton Highway, there's a lot of mud, and mud gets caked behind the wheel, and then there's no way to spray it out. So I think we spent about $50 at the local spray wash up there in Fairbanks trying to spray out the back of those wheels, and we still couldn't do it. And then what happens is the wheels become, the steering wheel starts to shake in your hands because you lose balance in the wheel. So it's aero, but it's really not good for off-road. And let's face it, the Lightning's not great for off-road either. It's only got like 10 inches of ground clearance. It's basically like an FX4 package, but I would say that's being generous. You really worry, and I know there's probably some kind of protection for the batteries, but whenever I'm off-roading an EV, I'm always terrified of like a sharp rock poking through the battery. And I'm sure the engineers have thought of that, but that doesn't mean I don't worry about it.
Right. Hey, just thinking about that for a second. Have you, Roman, and off topic, sorry, but have you driven the Hummer EV?
I have, yeah.
Okay. Have you done videos with that one yet?
I did, yeah. I got to go drive it at GM's Proving Ground, and that's a vehicle I love. I love vehicles that make no sense.
Right.
That one is one that makes no sense. A 250 kilowatt hour battery. It's hilarious because like you get in the thing, right, and it's got this WTF mode, watts to freedom for sure. Right. And then like they got this Hollywood company to produce this like graphic. The seat starts to shake, and then you floor it, and the thing just takes off, and you're like, "Holy cow! A big heavy truck should not do this." And you're like, "This is incredible!" And then you go to make a turn, and the truck just wants to keep going straight.
Yeah, it's heavy, but the rear wheel steering helps it a lot there, but with the turning.
That's also weird. When you do that, you know what that's like? If you've ever driven on an ice rink, sometimes journalists get to go on an ice rink. It's the weirdest thing because you're going forward and sideways at the same time, and there's nothing else that I can like compare it to except if you're on an ice rink and do that kind of movement. It's the craziest thing, and it does really help with tight turning radiuses. But I think as an off-road feature, it's more gimmicky than reality.
Yeah, I mean, I drove it off-road, and I found it extremely helpful. Like super tight turning, especially driving like almost straight up, and then you have to turn right at once you hit the peak, and makes it. I don't even know if it didn't have the rear steer, you'd have to be going forward, reverse, trying to get around this little niche.
A couple of years ago, I was up at Black Bear Pass, which is, by Telluride. And Black Bear Pass is terrifying, not because it's hard, it's a shelf road, but because it's a sheer fall like 2,000 feet down to Telluride. And once you get past the waterfall section, the very first turn you hit, there's a rock right on the apex turn. So you can't go around it. And I was following Raptor, we were in a Jeep, and I'm not joking, Dom. The problem is if you go more than like 2 inches past the curve, you're going to go off, right? You're going to find a very fast way to get to Telluride. And this Raptor took like probably a half hour. It's just like right, just to make those turns to get around it. And I think the Hummer EV would just go straight around it with 4-wheel steering. So that is definitely used for it. But that side thing is kind of goofy. The crab walk.
Well, I'm looking forward to seeing your towing videos with that, because it does have like over 200 kilowatt hours of battery in it. So if it takes away half of your range, it's got 329 miles of range, EPA range. So I think it'll do a little bit better than the Lightning. But I don't know.
We have one coming, and it was built like 3 months ago, and it's sitting at GM. I don't know where it is. I don't know how to get our hands on it. But I have a cutting plan. What I want to do is I'm going to do a series of videos because it's got such a large battery to see like if we can make it one of the longest range EVs. So I want to like cover up the rear wheel wells. I want to put on some low profile tires. I want to put on like a topper on the back to clean up the aero and see how far we can get that truck on a single charge, because it does have such a huge battery. So that's my cutting plan. I just spilled the beans. There you go. If you guys can do it ahead of us, go for it. But I really think that'd be fun.
That sounds, I don't know, Kyle, you don't have a Hummer coming, do you?
No, it's not. I can't wait to spend more time with it. I really enjoyed driving it just for the ludicrousness of the whole thing. It's just makes you smile the whole time you're driving it. But technically, it's also extremely impressive of a package because, like Roman said, really fast in WTF mode, but it doesn't feel stressed. It's just a cool package altogether.
Yeah. So now that we have you, actually, Kyle, you just got back from Europe. We spent the last week, but you showed us and you did some interesting things this week there, including this trip to the most amazing EV charging station in mainland Europe, and I believe that's a Tesla station. I'm just trying to pull up your video here on the screen.
Yeah, I think most of the stuff that we've done hasn't been posted yet, but that'll go at some point. This was a really cool charging station. It's just near Dusseldorf on a main travel route in northwestern Germany. 710 kilowatts of solar, 2 megawatt hours of battery pack storage, 40 superchargers, 12 300 kilowatt CCS stations, but those are split. So if you're doing simultaneous charging, they load share both, but room for expansion. And there's like a little bakery there. It's a really cool charging station. Really enjoyed it. People seem to like charging station tours. I really like doing them, but I don't think it's the most impressive. I think that's still probably that Zeus Marshausen one, which was the 75 DC fast chargers, all load shared across the whole site in southern Germany.
This is cool. I like these things, like the big, the old A&W restaurant things with the or Sonic drive-in fast food. It's got the. Mm-hmm. It looks just like that. You could have like people on roller skates bringing food to people's cars as a charge.
Yeah, I mean, tons of possibilities when it comes to charging, but pretty much just because we're really up on time, everything that we've done will be on YouTube on one of the channels. So yeah, nothing I would say out of the normal or crazy exciting worth talking about this past trip.
Okay. Well, you did go see the EVUM factory too, right?
Yep, toward the EVUM factory. Those are really cool. One of my favorite electric vehicles is this little small, rugged, yeah, I don't even know how to describe it. It's more than a golf cart, but less than a car. And it's, an awesome little thing. They're very expensive at the moment, but they're working to bring the prices down. I think if you get the big battery one, 32 kilowatt hours, you're into it for 50,000 euros, which is just crazy. The small battery one starts at like 35-ish, but even then that's way too expensive. So their whole plan right now is just crank as many as they can out, bring the cost down, and get it in the hands of as many people and municipalities as possible. And they apparently have a huge backlog of orders that they're trying to fulfill. So yeah, it's I think all on the up and up for these guys.
It's interesting. There's a few companies, like new companies, doing like small off-road trucks. There was a story on Inside EVs this week. Some guys in Scotland are electrifying like a kit you can get, but they're just as a development vehicle, and they're going to make some changes to it. But also super expensive, $80,000. There's some guys in Fredericton, New Brunswick, which I hope to visit soon, where I went to school actually, and they're doing an off-road vehicle as well, all-wheel drive. Their development, they're going to have they haven't debuted that yet, but that's coming up soon in September, and that's also expensive, but I guess there's demand. I don't know. It's not really a vehicle. I don't know. I know you like it a lot, Kyle, but it doesn't scream off-road to me.
Yeah, it's not to go rock crawling with. It's really for like parks and recreation services to clean up their stuff, or for, dirt and muddy roads in Africa and things like this. It's not to like, let's go take it to Moab and, go wheeling with it.
Right on. Well, I'm out of things here. I don't know. We have anything else we want to talk about? Anybody? Tom?
Well, we're at 122. This is roughly about where we end the show. But anything Roman want to talk about before we take off?
No, I'm just really honored that you guys included me. Thank you very much for letting me. I've been a huge fan of all of you guys. I've been listening to this podcast forever. It seems like it's my favorite podcast that I look forward to every week. So I'm just thrilled that I could be here. I'm bummed that I can't represent the electric MG crowd. So next time Martin comes back, he can do more MG stuff. But thank you guys for letting me join you. It was a hoot, and I love all your work, and I'm a huge fan. And thanks for letting me kind of spout off for an hour and a half.
Sweet. So I think we're all fans of TFL, and it was great. I get to meet Roman actually at the Cadillac Lyric Drive event, which was also great. I love that car so much. You liked it. You had a good time with that one too, right, Roman?
Yeah. The Lyric was fun, and it was fun. It was fun seeing Cadillac finally kind of finding its own way, right? Because Cadillac has been struggling. It's funny in America. we've lost a lot of the leadership in different forms of vehicles, right? Once upon a time, we used to build some of the coolest and greatest luxury cars. Think about the big finned Cadillacs, right? And then the Germans came along and took that away from us. And then we never actually owned economy cars, but certainly during the oil crisis, the Japanese came and took that away from us. And then, of course, I think we're still leaders in pickup trucks, but it's great to see kind of Cadillac figuring out, where they want to go and who they want to be again. And so I was really impressed by the Lyriq. It's sold out, and I think it should be sold out. And I'm really anxious to see when Cad gets its stride back, what kind of cool engineering and kind of cool design they could come up with. So it feels like they're kind of back in the game again.
Right. All right. So I guess that brings us to the end of our show. If you have any questions or comments, you can leave them on the Inside EVs forum podcast thread or on our YouTube or Twitch comment sections. If you like the show, please give us a thumbs up if you're watching us on YouTube. Tom's gives us a thumbs.
Yeah, come on, guys. We only have like 85 likes. You're going to give Roman a complex that you didn't like his appearance on the show here today.
Right. Give
Click that
Roman
like
some
button.
love. Yeah. All right. So don't forget, you can find and follow our panelists on Twitter. You can follow Tom Moloughney at Tomolog. That's with 2 M's. Kyle Connor is at It's Kyle Connor. I'm at Dominic_Y. Roman, are you on Twitter?
Yeah, we're on Twitter. You can find all of our stuff at alltfl.com. So we put all our podcast videos, TikToks, alltfl.com.
Alltfl?
Alltfl.com.
ALLTFL.
Yeah, FL.com. Yep.
Okay.
That's all of our content in one place.
You have a ton of channels. You have a podcast? I saw a TFL Talks.
Oh, we have
panel.
we have three podcasts. We have a motorcycle, truck, and car podcast.
Okay. Wow. Right on. It's like a media empire over there.
No, it's like me and arguing and people yelling at us for arguing.
Right on. All right. So click subscribe and tap that bell icon for notifications, and we'll see you all again next week. Ciao.